Have you ever wondered how a life marked by promises and trials can transform the destiny of a family? The story of Isaac, Abraham's promised son, is a journey of faith, challenge, and redemption. Imagine living under the shadow of a divine promise, facing the pain of injustice and the tension of difficult decisions. Isaac was not only an heir of promises, but also a man who faced the harsh realities of life, dealing with family rivalries and making choices that shaped his future and that of his descendants. Amidst his ups and downs, Isaac discovered the strength of faith and the power of reconciliation. His story teaches us about the importance of trusting in God, even when everything seems uncertain, and of finding peace despite the difficulties. Follow this inspiring journey and discover how, through trials and struggles, Isaac found the solution to the crises in his life and ensured that God's promise continued to shine. His story is a powerful reminder that even in the most difficult situations, faith and perseverance can transform our path and lead us to a future filled with hope and fulfillment. But before I start telling you the whole story of Isaac, I invite you to subscribe to our channel, because here we will be posting new videos every week for you to watch and connect even more with the Bible and with God. God's call to Abraham. It was an ordinary evening in Ur of the Chaldees, and Abram, a prosperous and well-established man, was with his wife, Sarah. His life was comfortable, but something extraordinary was about to happen. God, the creator of heaven and earth, appeared to Abram and called him, "Leave your country, your relatives and your father's house, and go to a land that I will show you." This call was unexpected. God promised Abram something great: he would become the father of a great nation. Furthermore, all the families of the earth would be blessed through him. But to do so, Abram would have to leave behind everything he knew, his homeland, his friends, and even the security of his life. Not knowing where he was going, but driven by faith and trust in God's promise, Abram obeyed. He gathered his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, and all his possessions, and set out into the unknown. The journey was long and difficult, but God's promise sustained him every step of the way. After traveling through strange lands, they finally reached the land of Canaan. And it was there that God spoke again to Abram, "To your descendants I will give this land." There, Abram built an altar and worshipped God, recognizing that he was exactly where God wanted him. He knew that this was just the beginning of a greater plan. Abram's obedience changed the course of history. The promised land was before him, and God's promise was beginning to be fulfilled. He had left everything behind, but now he was on the brink of something much greater: the fulfillment of his covenant with God. The promise of a son. Abraham and Sarah were advanced in years and had no children. This worried them, because having descendants was a sign of blessing. One day, God appeared to Abraham and made a promise that seemed impossible. Abraham would have a son with Sarah, and through this son, his generations would be numerous. Despite his age, Abraham listened to God's promise with faith. God even changed Abram's name to Abraham, which means father of many nations, and Sarai's name to Sarah, princess, as a sign that they would be the parents of a great nation. However, Sarah, upon hearing the promise, laughed to herself. She was already 90 years old and thought, "How can I have a son now?" But God answered her laughter. Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything impossible for God? He said that within a year, Sarah would give birth to a son. And this son would be named Isaac, which means laughter, to remember the joy and surprise of that moment. Despite all the reasons to doubt, Abraham believed. He knew that God was faithful and would fulfill his word, no matter how unlikely it seemed. Time passed, and Abraham continued to wait, confident in God's promise. This promise from God was not just about having a son, but about the beginning of something much greater: the fulfillment of the covenant God had made with Abraham and the blessing that would come to all humanity through his descendants. The birth of Isaac. After many years of waiting and doubt, the promised miracle arrived. Sarah, who was 90 years old and had spent her entire life childless, felt the pains of childbirth. Despite her advanced age and hardships, God fulfilled his promise. Sarah gave birth to a boy, and his name was Isaac, which means laughter. Isaac's birth was an event of great joy. Sarah, who had laughed in disbelief upon hearing God's promise, now laughed with joy and gratitude. She held her newborn son with a joy that could not be contained. Abraham, who was 100 years old, was also beaming, looking at Isaac with a mixture of admiration and gratitude to God. Isaac was not just a son to Abraham and Sarah, he was the fulfillment of a divine promise. God had said that through this son, Abraham would become the father of many nations. The birth of Isaac marked the beginning of the fulfillment of that promise. Abraham's home, which had previously been silent and full of expectation, was now filled with laughter and joy. Every day with Isaac was a reminder that God keeps his promises, no matter how impossible they seem. Isaac grew up in an environment of love and faith, and his birth symbolized God's faithfulness and the beginning of a great divine plan. We want to know, how do you think Isaac's birth impacted Abraham and Sarah's faith? And what does this story of hope and fulfillment mean to you today? Share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. The offering of Isaac as a sacrifice. God made a surprising request of Abraham: take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and offer him as a sacrifice on Mount Moriah. This command was a test of faith for Abraham, who had waited many years to have Isaac. Despite the pain and shock, Abraham obeyed. The next day Abraham got up early, prepared the wood for the sacrifice, and set out with Isaac to the place God had indicated. During the journey, Isaac asked, "Father, where is the lamb for the sacrifice?" Abraham replied, "God will provide the lamb, my son." When they reached the mountain, Abraham built an altar, placed the wood on it, and bound Isaac. Just as he was about to sacrifice his son, an angel of the Lord called out, "Abraham, do not do this. Now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son from me." Abraham looked around and saw a ram caught in a thicket. He offered the ram in Isaac's place. This place was called, "The Lord will provide," in recognition of God's provision. This experience strengthened Abraham's faith and showed that God is faithful and provides, even in the most challenging situations. Choosing a wife for Isaac. Abraham's son Isaac needed a wife. Abraham, now an old man, knew it was crucial to find the right partner for Isaac who shared his faith. So he sent his most trusted servant, Eliezer, to find a wife in his family's land, away from the Canaanites among whom they lived. Eliezer prayed as he stood at the well, "Lord, let me find a suitable wife for Isaac. When I call for water, let the young woman also offer water for my camels." A young woman who came to the well, Rebekah, answered Eliezer's request and offered water for the camels as well. She was from the family of Abraham's brother Nahor, which confirmed that God had guided Eliezer to her. Eliezer asked Rebekah's parents for permission to take her to Isaac. Rebekah agreed, and the family gave their blessing. When Rebekah and Eliezer arrived in Canaan, Isaac met Rebekah and took her as his wife. The wedding was a joy for all and marked the continuation of God's promise to Abraham. Rebekah and Isaac in the home. After their marriage, Rebekah settled with Isaac in his home in Canaan. Rebekah's presence brought renewed joy and order to the home. She quickly adapted to her new life, taking care of the house and helping Isaac with his daily tasks. Isaac and Rebekah became a loving and respectful couple. Isaac continued to care for the land and flocks inherited from his father Abraham. With Rebekah by his side, he found support and comfort in his daily life. Soon, Rebekah became pregnant, and the news brought great joy. The pregnancy, however, was difficult, and God revealed to Rebekah that she was expecting twins, who would be two different nations in conflict. When the twins were born, Esau, the older, was a hunter, and Jacob, the younger, helped more around the house. The arrival of the twins brought new dynamics to the family, with Isaac and Rebekah trying to balance their attention between their sons. Despite the challenges, Isaac and Rebekah's home was a place of love and blessings, continuing to fulfill the promises made to Abraham. If you're enjoying discovering everything about Isaac's story, leave a like on this video so that YouTube can always recommend our latest videos to you and connect even more with biblical stories. The rivalry between Isaac's sons. Isaac and Rebekah had two sons, Esau and Jacob. Esau, the firstborn, was a hardy hunter and was favored by his father. Jacob, who was more laid back, spent his time helping around the house and was closer to his mother. The rivalry began when Esau, hungry and exhausted after a hunt, traded his birthright for a bowl of lentils that Jacob was cooking. This impulsive exchange showed how little value Esau placed on his position as the firstborn. The situation worsened when Isaac, now old and with failing eyesight, prepared to bless Esau as his heir. Rebekah, knowing God's promise that Jacob would be the leader, helped Jacob deceive Isaac. He dressed in goatskins to look like Esau and received the blessing intended for his brother. When Esau discovered the deception, he was furious and vowed to take revenge on Jacob. To escape his brother's wrath, Jacob fled to his uncle Laban's house. Jacob and Esau later reconciled, but their rivalry left a deep mark on their lives and families. Jacob's return and reconciliation. After many years of working for his uncle Laban, Jacob decided to return to his homeland. He was worried about meeting his brother Esau, whom he had deceived in the past. To prepare, Jacob sent messengers to Esau with gifts and a message of peace. The messengers returned with news that Esau was coming to meet Jacob with a large entourage. Fearing that Esau was still angry, Jacob divided his family and possessions into two groups, planning that if one was attacked, the other could still escape. Jacob also prayed to God for protection. During the night, Jacob had an encounter with a mysterious man, who was actually an angel. They wrestled until dawn, and the angel gave Jacob a new name, Israel, and a blessing. This experience strengthened Jacob. The next morning, Jacob approached Esau humbly. To his surprise, Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, and forgave him. They were reconciled, and Esau accepted the gifts Jacob had sent. After their reunion, Jacob settled near where he had met Esau and built an altar in thanksgiving to God. The reconciliation with Esau was an important milestone, showing the restoration of relations and the continuation of God's promises. We want to hear from you. What touched you most about the reconciliation between Jacob and Esau? How does the story of Jacob and his struggle for restoration resonate with your own experiences of forgiveness and reconciliation? Share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. The death of Isaac, now old and with failing eyesight, knew that his end was near. He called his eldest son, Esau, to give him one last blessing before he died. Isaac asked Esau to hunt an animal and prepare a tasty meal, just as he liked. Isaac's wife, Rebekah, learned of the plans and remembered God's promise that Jacob, their youngest son, should receive the blessing. She prepared a similar meal and dressed Jacob in Esau's clothes and goatskins to deceive Isaac. Jacob took the food to Isaac, who, despite being suspicious of the voice, believed the appearance and gave Jacob the blessing intended for Esau. When Esau returned and discovered the deception, he was devastated, and Isaac confirmed that the blessing had already been given to Jacob. After these events, Isaac continued to be in poor health for the rest of his life. He died and was buried in the cave of Machpelah, next to his parents, Abraham and Sarah. Isaac's death marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new phase in his family's history. If you enjoyed exploring the story of Jacob and Esau and want to continue diving into inspiring and profound narratives from the Bible, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories and analyses. Join us on this journey of faith and discovery, and continue to find inspiration in the stories that have shaped our history. Until next time.